Good afternoon or good morning or good evening if you're watching the recording. Thank you for joining us for our presentation on academic language and skills for stage 2. My name is Marijke Geurts and I'm joined by Allan.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Sorry.
And Paul Carter, who is helping us moderate. Thank you so much, Paul. Okay.
Happy to help. Happy to help.
Okay, so in today's webinar, we're going to talk about two modules for CLB 5-6, developing academic and research skills, and for CLB 7-8, working in academic groups. And I would like to ask you to please hold your questions or post them in the chat so that we can discuss them if they're applicable, or we'll try to answer them at the end of our session. And if we have time, we also plan to do a live demo of either of those modules that we're talking about. So first, let's take a look at the CLB 5-6 module, Developing Academic and Research Skills, which was first released in September 2022. John, could you tell us a bit more about the background for this module?
Okay, thanks, Marijke. Thank you for coming, everybody. One of the short-term goals a newcomer may have is the ability to help their children with their high school homework. Or in the long term, they may want to attend post-secondary education in Canada to upgrade their skills or earn a Canadian diploma. Newcomers may face the daunting task of going back to school using a new language in a new country. As well, in an academic context, the language used is often different from common everyday language. They will study new topics such as science or economics, follow teachers' instructions, and complete research projects with fellow students. Skills needed to be successful in a post-secondary education may include reading and writing about charts, tables, and graphs, and using databases to research for information. At the CLB 5-6 level, it can be a challenge to connect the tasks learners face in the real world with language expectations of their CLB level. In writing this module, we look closely at the sample tasks given in the CLB 2012 document and adapted real-world tasks to match those benchmarks. Pictured here are the assessment tasks that learners will be working towards in this module. On the next slides, we'll take a closer look at how we build towards these. First, follow a teacher's instructions for completing a classroom task, such as drawing a graph, for example, using data from a table to create a line graph. Next, give instructions to a classmate on how and where to find reference material. For example, using library resources or online information when preparing to write an academic essay. And then, read and interpret an informational text with a few simple charts, tables, and graphs about familiar academic topics. For example, economics questions such as how many people have a job or where do people live, and offer a general opinion about these topics. Finally, in a visual with a caption, write a description of a chart or graph to use in an academic report about a socio-economic topic. We know that this is quite a meaty topic, so we've included a variety of activities with lots of opportunities to practice. Let's have a quick poll. Do you think that the information and graphs about employment, transportation, etc. are of interest to your learners? So we'll just take a few seconds here because there's about 300 of you on this webinar. So, okay, we're going to show the poll now.
Yeah, 7
okay.
of, well, we have 87%. Now we have 100% participation.
Oh, that's amazing. So as you can see, all of you do think that this would be useful for your students, and we did as well. Yeah. So we're going to revisit this poll at the end of this module. Over to you, Marijke, for more.
Thanks. Thanks, John. So to get started with the module, learners discuss their own experience with post-secondary education in Canada or in another country. There's a glossary with new words that are useful for listening to instructions and navigating a website. The activity Vocabulary for Reading Line Graphs offers new words that learners will encounter throughout this module. At the start of the module, we also recommend using some activities from the TCDSB unit, getting information from table charts and graphs for CLB 5+. Next, learners can try the skill building activity using sequencing terms, which supports both listening and speaking. One of the short videos in this task is called Logging into Avenue, and we hope that learners will be familiar with logging in, and so they'll be able to focus on the language used to give these instructions. Then learners practice recognizing and using the imperative in a grammar exercise. And finally, they put all of this together and they listen to a teacher giving instructions to draw a demand curve. And these instructions are supported by visuals. In the skill using task, this is changed to drawing a supply curve. And then in the assessment task, learners have to follow instructions to draw a line graph. So it's really scaffolding up to that assessment task. So here's a screenshot of the online listening activities. For this module, some of the activities are only available for learners online. And for some, we've only created a paper-based version, such as that skill building activity, Use the Imperative, which I just mentioned in the previous slide. So in this screenshot, you can see that the skill using and assessment tasks have different versions for CLB 5 and 6. Therefore, it's important that your learners have checked off the appropriate link level in their profile, or they might not be able to see these activities. If you wish, you can remove those restrictions. So John, what can you tell us about the speaking tasks?
In the first skill building activity for speaking, learners learn about two strategies: checking for understanding and using emphasis to highlight what is important. All of the sentences in this activity are then used again in the following activities. So learners will become fluent in giving instructions to navigate a website. In the skill building activity, Searching a Database, learners navigate a small database on Avenue built specifically for this module. First, they watch a video on how to search a database, and then they practice this with a partner. The pages in the database all have some kind of visual and gives information about import, export, or transportation. This database can also be used to practice reading charts, tables, graphs, and maps. You could even ask learners to add their own pages as a writing task. Next, learners practice how to find a book in an online library catalog. We've used the New Brunswick Public Library's catalog and the Ottawa Public Library, with their permissions, of course, but you could easily change the task and use your local library catalog instead. That is, if you have permission to do so. We've used the same two catalogs in the skill using and assessment tasks respectively. This is where the learners help a friend to find a resource. And here's a closer look at that database. It may look complicated, but it's a great place for learners to practice giving and following instructions because there are less than 20 database entries. This is a teacher view, so as you know, it has a few more tabs across the top than the students would see. If at the end of this session we have some more time, we might be able to show this live on the module itself. On this screenshot, you can see that some of the skill building tasks will only become available after the previous screen has been completed. We hope that this ensures that students complete all of the activities that you assign. Again, you can remove this restriction anytime if you want. There are online versions for all skill using and assessment tasks with learner self-assessment available.
Thanks, John. So the next skill in this module is reading. And for the first skill building task, learners use that database to locate specific information, and they practice skimming and scanning in this activity. In the activity Reading About Unemployment, learners apply the same skimming and scanning techniques on a longer text that includes 2 graphs they will also have to interpret. When following the news, learners may come across the types of line and bar graphs they encounter in this module, or they might see a graph on their utilities bill. They may also be able to relate personally to the information, for example, about the effects of the pandemic, which is the topic of the skill using task. In the assessment task, learners use the same skills again, but here they read about the population in Canada. When the module is added to your course, all of the activities will be hidden as shown by this tag. For the screenshots in this presentation, we've removed most of those. As you can see, we've added a variety of activities to this course, such as H5P or downloadable files. For the listening and reading skill using and assessment tasks, we've used quizzes, which are mostly self-correcting and auto-collected to the e-portfolio. As the instructor, you do have to manually check short answers to open-ended questions and mark open-ended essay questions. But we did provide an answer key in the module package, but also in the online quizzes. In the reading quizzes, the text is added as a PDF, which is set to open in a new tab, so that learners switch between the text and the quiz. Now, this may be something you have to demonstrate to learners. And if I'm going to be very quick, I can show you what that will look like. Okay, awesome. So this is the quiz. I'm going to preview it. And so to open the reading text, learners will have to click, which will then open a new tab with the PDF that they can scroll through. And if they want to get back, they just switch back to the quiz. So they can switch back and forth between the text and the quiz to answer all the questions. So back to the slide. Perfect. John.
Thanks, Marijke.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Marijke.
Yeah.
For the writing task in this module, we're walking a fine line. As at CLB 5.6, learners are not expected to explain a graph in detail. Therefore, we only ask them to describe a graph. However, this does give creative instructors the opportunity to level up in this task if they have learners who are working at a higher CLB level in writing. The first skill building activity, composing a descriptive paragraph, can also be used as a skill building for reading, as learners closely inspect several graphs about transportation before completing a guided writing practice. The skill building activity, writing about visuals, also supports reading, as learners first learn to recognize the information in captions, and then with a group, they discuss a varied collection of visuals and capture the essence in a caption. They choose one of the images and write a descriptive paragraph. In the skill using an assessment task, learners are given a graph with a caption, which they have to describe. We've also added requirements for completion to the activities which you can use when you turn on completion tracking on your course. For some activities, learners will receive a check mark for just viewing them. For others, such as a forum, they have to post to it. And for quizzes and assignments, they need to submit their work. You can be flexible with this module and leave out some of the skill building activities, or not do each assessment if you've already done the skill using activity for that skill. You may even consider skipping the writing tasks if your learners already have had plenty of these in their binder. This is our second poll, another poll. Do you think that the information and graphs about employment transportation, etc., are of interest to your learners still. And in this poll, there's a second question. Do you think this will help them practice their research and academic skills? You might have to scroll down on the poll, folks.
What's interesting is that in the first poll, there were most people said yes or maybe a little, and now there's one person who says no. I'm very, very sad.
I think we failed. I'm joking.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
No, but if you feel that this is not a good topic for your learners, like please let us know. Give your feedback in the chat because we do want to hear back.
Okay, so yes, the majority of you say that you do feel it's useful to of interest to your learners, and the majority also say that it should help them with their practice with their academic research skills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
good.
That's good. We hope it's true. We hope it's true. Now let's look at the second module. In the second module, we want to present today working in academic groups for CLB 7-8. Some of the skill building activities in this module might also be useful for CLB 5-6 with some additional scaffolding. Working in academic groups follows a new template for the PBLA modules. The module package is more concise. When you open it, you'll see the difference. The main difference with previous modules is that most skill building tasks do not give you an either or option, but offer a blend of online and in-class activities with teaching notes clearly explaining the steps, what you could assign as independent work and follow up practice in class, or the other way around. So Marijke, do you want to continue with?
Yeah,
thank you.
For sure. Thanks. So just like in the previous module, each activity has teaching notes that offer additional practice suggestions and extra resources and, answer keys, desired outcomes, discussion prompts, etc. However, in this new template, the teaching notes are kept to one single page. For audio activities, we've also included the transcripts in the module package. And you can see in this screenshot here that those icons for in-class and online activities are also part of the teaching notes. So it's really clear what you can do in which modality. And so we have one more poll, which is how do you teach your class? So do you teach blended, fully online, face-to-face? Do you have synchronous and asynchronous components? Or maybe you're fully back in class and you only have face-to-face. That's also possible. But right now, I'll end the poll and share those results because this looks like a perfect balance. Some people have a blended class. Some people have a fully online class. There's synchronous and asynchronous components. So we really hope that this new module package, this new template works for all of you. So learners will be most successful in this module if they meet some of these prerequisites. And you can build this context when you introduce the module to the class and ask learners to share some of their experiences in a class discussion. It helps if learners have an understanding of the different levels of education in Canada, some awareness of cultural differences in teaching styles, and an awareness of their own preferred learning style. Learners should also have a basic understanding of group work and different roles in the group. And having some experience using an online learning platform such as Avenue and awareness that there are many different online apps and tools is also beneficial. We think that this module is not a good fit for learners with low computer literacy skills. So these are the assessment tasks at the end goals for each skills in the order we suggest in the module package. First, learners read a chapter about group dynamics and answer questions. Then they listen to instructions to complete a group project. They take notes and answer questions. After that, learners give instructions themselves and they demonstrate how to use an online tool. Finally, they write a comparison. In the skill using task, learners compare two online tools, and in the assessment task, they look at group work. So from these brief descriptions of the assessment tasks, you can already see that there are two main topics in this module: group work and online apps.
The skills and topics in this module are interwoven, and the next few slides will hopefully illustrate that. Naturally, the skill building tasks support skill using and assessment tasks in the same skill as they build vocabulary and language skills needed for success. As mentioned before, to get started with this module, you can ask learners to share some of their experience in a class discussion or on the introduction forum. We've also added a glossary with relevant vocabulary for this module. You can ask learners to add their own words or example sentences to the entries. However, be careful. The guess and spell game is based on the glossary, so you might want to check student entries before they try that game.
Yep. So the first skill in this module is reading a chapter from a study guide. Learners first practice to make connections between paragraphs. And then there's also a paper-based skill building activity comparing two learning apps. So you don't see it in this list. The activity includes vocabulary practice, and learners read about Quizlet and Kahoot. The skill using and assessment tasks do have a paper-based and an online option. It is important to know that the information and texts in the reading skill building activities also serve as an example for the comparison learners will be asked to write themselves at the end of the module. They will also be able to use the information from the reading, skill using, and assessment tasks when they write the comparison of different groups at the end. In one of the listening skill building tasks, learners have the opportunity to watch a video about online group work. And of course, they'll be able to draw on their own experiences. All of that information funnels into the writing assessment task at the end of the module. It is important that learners are aware of this and that they keep their work and notes organized, which is another useful academic skill, by the way.
At the heart of the module are the listening tasks. Some of the skill building tasks for listening and speaking support both skills. For example, the listening skill building activity, following sequencing terms for instructions, helps learners to recognize and use these terms. In the listening skill using activity, learners listen to a slideshow presentation with instructions to complete a group speaking project. Learners are asked to explain to a small group of peers how to use a certain online app. These are actually the instructions for the speaking skill using task, where learners choose an app they know well and would like to demonstrate to their classmates. Then, for the speaking assessment task, instead of choosing an app, learners choose a feature of Avenue to demonstrate. The listening assessment task follows logically after that. You guess what these instructions will be for? That's right. They'll listen to instructions on completing a group writing project using the information that they've learned from their own research and their classmates' demonstrations of a tool. They are now going to write about that. These are the online activities for listening. As you can see, the first is a book. It contains H5P practice activities. As well, it has instructions for learners to prepare an activity that they can do in class with a partner. Also, there is a video about doing online group work that we mentioned earlier. This is an H5P interactive video that practices understanding instructions, but the information is also useful for the writing assessment task. The listening skill using and assessment task videos are slideshow presentations with voiceovers. Let's take a brief listen.
If you give me a second, I'll try to get
Okay,
that right.
DJ, cue it up.
And I have to share the sound, obviously.
Good morning. The technology demonstrations that we shared in the past two classes were very informative. They gave us technologies that may assist us in our future studies or jobs. Now, you will also write a comparison between two of the technologies that your group observed in the group demonstrations. To help you with this task, there is a process to be followed that will make it straightforward.
That was just a short little bit.
Okay, you're sharing again. It's good.
Is it back to the presentation?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So online, the activities for speaking are organized like this, as you can see here. The skill building activity, learning to use Grammarly, serves as an example on how to give instructions for using an app. Learners watch and analyze the video. As many other activities in this module, the video supports another skill, in this case, writing, since the topic is editing and correcting a text. In the folder demonstrating an app, we provide learners with PDF instructions on how to use a certain application. These PDFs support them when they give instructions to their peers, and there are 4 different sets of instructions. Once again, learners will be able to use what they've learned about apps when they get to write about them in the culminating task at the end of the module. But wait, there's more. As John has just mentioned, in the speaking skill using activity, learners demonstrate an app or online tool to each other. After that skill using task, learners continue to work in the same group. As a writing skill building activity, they brainstorm the pros and cons of each of these tools, and they draft a list of likes and dislikes. That information is going to help them to write a comparison of 2 tools or applications. What's more, in the writing skill using task, learners exchange their work with someone in their group. They peer edit each other's work and then write a second draft, which will serve as their writing skill using submission. And all of this was already explained in the listening assessment task.
The writing skill building tasks practice peer editing. The first activity is a lesson where learners get to choose their own path through a series of activities. It is followed by an in-class activity with a partner. Do you use a specific set of error correcting symbols when correcting your work? Or do you also allow your learners to use this or promote this with your learners when they're giving peer feedback? For this module, we've also provided additional resources. These include a common set of editing symbols for your consideration. You can find them at the top of the module in the For Teachers section. You can complete the skill using task in person and have learners exchange their written work, but we have also set up a workshop activity. There are links in the help files and the teaching notes for using a workshop activity if you haven't done so in the past. For the writing assessment task, we set up an assignment with a rubric so that you can assess your learners' work online. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to our presentation. If there are any questions, sorry, Paul, are there any questions in the chat box that you can see?
There was only one about the supply curve, but I wasn't actually sure what the question was. So if anyone wanted to ask now, that's a good time for it.
Thanks, Paul.
Great module, by the way. This looks fantastic. All of these supplementary resources, the stuff to assist students and help. This is a really great package. Thank you for putting that together.
Hopefully it'll make sense after this presentation of how all those components work together. And it's not a module, either one, the 5-6 or the 7-8. They're not modules that you do like, first you do all of the speaking tasks, then you do all of the listening tasks. So they really are integrated. There's questions about like, what's the supply curve?
Right.
This is explained in the module as the students learn about it. Teachers will also learn about it.
Actually, I think a lot of us learn from these modules.
Yeah, for sure. And it's true, like if economics is not your thing, but when you see it, it'll make sense. It's like, I mean, look at the situation that we're in right now with rising costs of living, and like that's everyday economics.
I was just going to say, with inflation, there's a lot in the news, and my students have asked me, about interpreting graphs. So I think it is really, a real world task that they have to do in daily life. So I think it's helpful to have this practice.
Good.
So thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. So we did have a question for you guys. After seeing this overview, do you think you will adapt some of these activities? Because some of them, like the library, researching in the library catalog, is something that you can adapt, or you could maybe pull a graph or a chart from the news that's more current and use that in one of the activities. Do you think you will adapt some of the work? At the end of each module, there's also a link. It's not at the end of the module. It's in the for teacher only section. There's a link where you can complete our feedback survey, which we always really appreciate. We still have lots of time, and we promised we would do a little live demo. So maybe it's a good idea to do a live demo, John.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I think just it might be good to mention that a lot of the data we used was from Statistics Canada. So if you want to update some of the data that we used for 2023 to make it very real, especially with inflation, cost of gasoline, etc., you can just switch out the numbers.
Yep, that's true.
Okay, I'm just trying to find. Is that?
Yeah,
like
let me
Moodle
see
thing.
if I can find the database really quickly. Oh, that's
yeah, you're in the sample modules. That's good.
that's this one. And the database is number here, number 9. So this is the screenshot that we had shared with you guys earlier. This is the teacher view. If I go to student view, it's not going to show me anything because it's hidden, right? It's hidden for students. But you can see here, there's 2 pages, and there's 10 entries per page. So really, there's not that many entries. So learners are not going to get lost, and it's always easy to get back to the beginning. So in the module, in the teaching notes, and also in the learner handout, they get step-by-step instructions on how to search in the database, and then they have to give each other instructions on how to find a specific page. And then for the reading, we use the same database where they have to find a page and then quickly find certain information. So anybody want to see a specific topic here? I can click on anything.
How about airport activity? I love seeing the database in action, by the way. This is a great activity.
Right, airport activity. So yeah, you just click on it, and then so every entry is basically set up the same way. It has a title, it has an image with a caption, and then there's a short paragraph. There's a short paragraph. So there's not too much reading. Some entries also have like a little table. So there's a chart and a table to read. And it's just, there's a lot of information in the database, but it's chunked up into little bits and pieces. So learners, you know, find the information that they're looking for, and then they can go back to the list, brings them back to the front page. And if I wanted to search for something specific, like bridges, maybe I want to learn about bridges. Then I get to see, oh, there's only 2 entries that have information about the bridges. And then I can look at either one of those. And this one has a map of Canada. Again, it has a caption, and then it has 2 short paragraphs. And the word that I searched for is highlighted. And we try to include information about transportation and economics, things like that, import, export, but from different points of view. There's also some historical things in there, like on a historical map, I believe we used. So if I wanted to know which map, I get 2 that have a map. So this is the way that learners can practice searching a database, which gives them just a limited number of pages in return. Right. Anything else? Anybody maybe ask for a specific? Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, no more requests.
Well, thank you very much. This looks fantastic. I feel like people are just wowed. Wowed into silence today.
Yeah. Well, the
module.
one big thing that I want to close off with then is that it is important to look at the whole module before you start teaching it, because you want to know what's coming so that you know which activities you might want to adapt for your learners, where they might need a little bit more support or more skill building. We've tried to include links to other useful videos or websites for grammar practice, for example, that help you on your way with additional skill building activities. When there are additional activities already on Avenue, like those Toronto Catholic District School Board units, or in the link activities books, we try to include those suggestions as well to make your life easy.
That's fantastic too, and teachers can import those into their course and use the legacy courseware SCORM packages to complement what's already there. It's a really nice mixture. That's great.
And I did notice somebody saying in the chat that there are activities in the link activities binder for paragraph writing, for reading activities, managing information, and things like that. So yes, those are all supporting the skills in this module as well, for sure.
That's fantastic.
Awesome.
I'm going to put a link into the chat there if anyone's interested. That will take you to a list of all of those, where you can see all the different learning objects that are available and organized by the link activity book that they are from. So that's a nice page just to get an overview. Then you can find them either on Tutela or on Avenue as well. Talk to your mentor if you need help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and there are some newer activities that we've used, for example, the database and the workshop, but there are lots of help files on Avenue, and we've linked to those help files. If you're not sure how to use the workshop activity, there's information to support you. And also good to know that the workshop has been completely set up for you. Everything's there. All you have to do is make it active and go to the next phase when learners have submitted their work and they need to give each other feedback. You just have to click and start the next phase. So we try to set everything up for you. Good. Well, thanks everybody. Thank you, John. It was such a pleasure working on this module with you. Thank you, Paul.
Likewise.
For hosting the webinar with us.
No problem. Thank you both for all the work you put into this.
Thank you,
fantastic.
Paul. Good. All right. On to the next one, right?
True.
Have a great afternoon, everybody, and see you next time.